In July 1944, while soldiers were still dying on beaches across Europe, 730 delegates from 44 nations sat down in a New Hampshire hotel and quietly decided how the world's money would work for the next 30 years. Most people think the Second World War was decided by tanks and aircraft carriers, but something equally consequential was happening in conference rooms. The Bretton Woods Conference wasn't about winning the war, it was about preventing financial chaos after it ended, and it shaped every currency transaction you've ever made. Here's the problem these delegates were trying to solve. After World War I, the global economy fractured. Countries printed money recklessly. Exchange rates swung wildly. A pound sterling might be worth one thing Monday and something entirely different by Friday. Businesses couldn't plan. Farmers didn't know what their crops would fetch. It was financial chaos dressed up as peace. Think of it like this. Imagine trying to run a grocery store where the value of your money changes every hour and you can't predict what your suppliers will charge tomorrow. You'd stop ordering. The whole system would seize up. That's what happened to the world economy between the wars. So in 1944, with the war still raging, American and British economists started asking, what if we could lock currency values in place? What if every country agreed that their money would be worth a fixed amount relative to gold and relative to each other? Stability, predictability, trust. The two main architects were John Maynard Keynes from Britain and Harry Dexter White from the United States. Keynes was already famous, a towering intellect who'd critiqued the Versailles Treaty after World War I. White was less known but equally brilliant and represented American financial interests. They disagreed on almost everything. That tension shaped what Bretton Woods became. Here's what they actually agreed on. The US dollar would be pegged to gold at a fixed price, $35 per ounce. Every other currency would be pegged to the dollar. So a British pound, a French franc, a German mark, all of them now had a defined value in relation to the dollar and therefore to gold. But there was a catch. If you fixed exchange rates, countries couldn't just print unlimited money anymore. If Britain printed too many pounds, they'd have to back it with actual gold. The discipline was built in. No more wild inflation. No more currency chaos, in theory. The conference also created two new institutions, the International Monetary Fund, or IMF, and the World Bank. Think of the IMF as a referee. If a country ran into trouble, if it couldn't pay its debts or its currency was under pressure, the IMF could step in and lend money. The World Bank would finance reconstruction and development in war-torn Europe and eventually the developing world. Here's what's remarkable. 730 delegates from 44 different countries, many of them enemies just months earlier, or soon to be enemies, agreed on a framework. They didn't agree on everything. The Soviet Union, suspiciously, didn't fully participate, but the sheer fact of consensus was stunning. Why did it work, at least for a while? Because the United States emerged from World War II with something no other nation had: massive gold reserves. The US held roughly 2/3 of the world's gold. The dollar was literally backed by metal in Fort Knox. Other countries trusted it. And for nearly 30 years, it actually did work. From 1944 to the early 1970s, exchange rates were stable. Businesses could plan, trade grew, Europe rebuilt, developing nations attracted investment. If you wanted to know what a currency would be worth in 5 years, you could look at the Bretton Woods Agreement and know. But systems have limits. By the 1960s, the US had spent heavily on the Vietnam War and social programs. American gold reserves started to shrink. Other countries began demanding to exchange their dollars for actual gold. Suddenly, the math didn't work anymore. In 1971, President Richard Nixon made a shocking announcement. The US would no longer exchange dollars for gold. The peg was broken. Bretton Woods collapsed. Currencies started floating again. No more fixed rates, back to uncertainty. Now you might think that meant Bretton Woods was a failure. It wasn't. The IMF and World Bank still exist. They still function. And the dollar, even without gold backing, remained the world's primary reserve currency. That stability Bretton Woods created, it had lasting power. What Bretton Woods really showed was this: money works only because we agree it works. The delegates in New Hampshire didn't discover a law of nature. They created a shared story about what value means, and the world believed that story for 30 years. When that story stopped being believable, when US gold reserves couldn't back the dollar anymore, the system changed. Not because Bretton Woods failed, but because the world's economic reality had shifted. The system was actually working exactly as designed. It reflected the world's power structure. So when you see exchange rates today, when you understand why a dollar is worth a certain amount of euros or yen, you're looking at the legacy of decisions made in a New Hampshire hotel in 1944. The fixed rates are gone, but the institutions remain. The principle that global finance needs shared rules, that stayed. Bretton Woods wasn't perfect. It favored wealthy nations. It couldn't adapt to a changing world, but it answered a real question. How do you build trust in a system when countries can't trust each other? The answer, then and now, is you write down the rules, you get everyone to sign, and you hope the world changes slowly enough that the agreement still holds. This video is for educational and informational purposes only and is not financial advice. Always do your own research. Subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive into how the financial systems shaping your daily life actually came to be. This video is for educational and informational purposes only and is not financial advice. Always do your own research.